Arc 3.0 is on the horizon, and I had a request to take a look at exotic armor that feature unique functions towards arc-based things and give them a once-over. Let's take a look, see what might be happening in Arc 3.0, just have some discussion. So let's have some discussion. Right off the bat, something that I didn't really realize until I started this is that a lot of arc-specific exotics are linked to supers. In fact, 2 out of 3 for Titan, 2 out of 4 for Warlock, and 3 out of 6 for Hunter are based on their supers. As a result, I don't really have a lot to say about these exotics as they relate to Arc 3.0, as I don't believe any of the Arc supers are going to get significant changes. Fist of Havoc will likely end up getting Terminal Velocity implemented into it, Arc Staff will probably get Whirlwind Guard, and Storm Trance will either get Ionic Blink or Landfall built in, not sure which one, potentially both. Otherwise, all I have to say on these exotics is that some of them probably could use some buffs, and the others are just the go-to exotic and have been since they were made. Cuirass of the Falling Star, pretty much the only reason why Thunder Crash is good. Without it, Thunder Crash, not really that great, but also there isn't an arc exotic to even use with Middle Tree Striker Titan. I would love for Thunder Crash to not be so reliant on Cuirass to be good, but at the same time, there's nothing else I'd use anyway while Cuirass is in the state that it is in right now. Eternal Warrior, it got some use as a swap exotic, but that's really about it, and has never been regarded as a good exotic. I think Eternal Warrior will potentially get the trample effect from Bottom Tree Striker, which extends your super on kill, although this effect could just become a fragment. I mean, it's in the name. Eternal Warrior. Trample lets you use your super for longer. I know some Dawnblade Warlocks who might be upset about this, as Dawnblade is currently one of the weaker supers in the game right now that did not get its ability to have its super duration increased. But this change would certainly do a lot of good to bring some life to an exotic that most people never touch. Then we have Insurmountable Skull Fort, which is where we can actually have some sort of conversation. Now, given that the other subclasses for Titan both have Shoulder Charge as a normal melee option that you can pick, I don't see Seismic Strike getting its own aspect, which means that I don't really think Skull Fort is going to see any significant changes unless we have a Lorelei situation where there's some sort of slight function change to the exotic based on some changes in the subclass. I mean, even reading the description, kills with arc melee abilities, that itself could be like an aspect or a fragment, or kills with arc ability, something like that could be an aspect or a fragment. Given the nature of the aspect and fragment system though, I do suspect this exotic will get better or at least stay the same in terms of how strong it is, since there will likely be something that synergizes with constantly putting out melee damage. There's probably going to be some sort of fragment chain lightning thing that happens on a melee, or you get grenade energy like Aftershocks get you right now after a melee kill or something like that. But Bungie really wants people to build specifically for a thing if you want to be able to do it well. The Skull Fort build right now is literally put on Skull Fort and Top Tree Striker, and then you're done. So I suspect some shifts to happen here to make this combo maybe still possible, but you'll have to invest a bit more into it to make it happen. But I am skeptical that Arc 3.0 will end up being a strong choice in endgame content like Master and GM Nightfalls, which means Bungie might allow something like Skull Fort to dominate in lower tier content as compensation. The same kind of goes for Lorelei's right now, really good in mid-tier content, but I'm kind of skeptical about being able to survive a couple of shotgun blasts in a GM while under the effects of Restoration. In terms of aspects for Titans, I think the door is wide open here. Most of the classes have gotten something new for their revamps. I fully expect to see something new for Titans as well. Middle Tree, I think they're going to break all that up. The melee attack will still probably exist, but I don't know if they will just take all of Middle Tree and then make it an aspect. I feel like that's too specific of a thing to make into an aspect, but it's certainly plausible. There's obviously going to be something that revolves around some form of melee attack as an aspect, potentially combined with some sort of movement speed increase type deal. In terms of arc keywords, there's probably going to be stuff based on melee, speed boosts, chain lightning, maybe disorient or blinding as well. But how all that's going to come together, that I'm not really sure on, because arc has some of the weakest identity in Destiny as far as subclass synergy goes. It's not like a solar where things were much more obvious, like doing a bunch of damage over time can lead to an explosion. That was relatively easy to imply, but with arc, I mean, not really. All we know is like it's gonna feature some melee stuff and some movement speed stuff, and that's all we really know. Warlocks, you have Storm Dancer's Brace and Geomag Stabilizers as far as your exotics based on supers go, and these are both fine. Storm Trance is a bit weak right now in my opinion, on top of no one wanting to actually use Arc, which is why we don't see Storm Dancers at all really, but when Arc 3.0 rolls around, and if Storm Trance gets a slight buff, which I think is deserved, then I think this grows in popularity. Geomags is the only exotic that links up with Chaos Reach, so that's just kind of a given that you're going to put those on, regardless of how good or bad either one of the two things is at any given moment. I don't see these supers getting any dramatic shifts though. I also don't see Crown of Tempest getting many adjustments because it affects both your super and regular gameplay. It's basically good everywhere and has been for a while, although definitely a bit weaker in endgame stuff since things in endgame don't really die as easily to regular abilities. The super is okay though. This is also a branch neutral exotic, so I don't even have any commentary on the situation when it comes to aspects and fragments compared to something like Liar's Handshake, which is mainly used with Top Tree on Hunter specifically. You can use Crown of Tempest with any branch and have success. But even though it's a pretty fine exotic, I think it'll get even better with Arc 3.0 depending on how keywords end up working out. Right now, this exotic solely relies on just chaining abilities together with Arc Web, but with fragments probably giving us some sort of boosted energy effects, I see it performing slightly better than it does right now. Getaway Artist, turning your grenade into an Arc Soul. Arc Soul is fine. It's kind of a novelty, like niche thing. I think you really need to go all in with Arc Souls to make it good, and good is being used very loosely. I'm trying to picture a world where I'm using Arc Souls in GMs and they're just doing like the tiniest chip damage ever. I don't see these gloves getting better or worse at all really, unless the Arc Soul can trigger an Arc keyword or does something with an Arc keyword, which I think will happen, because I think there's a very large chance that Arc Soul becomes an aspect. We have Child of the Old Gods. There's no way we don't see Arc Soul become an aspect, because if it doesn't become an aspect, I don't think it stays in the game, and there's no way that Arc Soul does not stay in the game. There's just no way, even if it is a niche thing right now. It is probably too iconic to Stormcaller to just completely get rid of. I don't think they get rid of it. I think it becomes an aspect. So what could the other two aspects be? It's a great question. Arc Warlocks are pretty slow. I don't know if Bungie's going to keep it that way or give them something to speed them up. That could be a brand new thing if they want to give them some speed, or maybe just give them blink. I could see Arc Web or Ionic Traces becoming the base for a new aspect as well. Arc Web could chain some new keywords to hit enemies if there's some sort of debuff, which there might be. Ionic Traces right now are a bit boring though, so I think they would need to jazz that up a little bit for it to be an aspect. I think Arc Web has the advantage in becoming an aspect, but could maybe go either way. I picked these specifically because there's actually something to build off of here. They're generic enough that you can make them do kind of whatever you want, but not so specific that it forces people into doing a really specific thing. I kind of mentioned that with the Middle Tree Striker. Like, that whole sequence is just too specific in my eyes. I guess you could technically build off of something like Ionic Blink, but like, why not just give Warlocks Blink on Arc? You know what I mean? Pulse Wave could become a fragment for all of the classes. I think that's generic enough to have happen. Electrostatic Surge could be built into Arc Soul. Storm Trance is definitely getting at least Landfall or Ionic Blink intrinsically, potentially both, like I said earlier. It's not like that wouldn't fit what Bungie seems to be going for with these supers. If Arc Web becomes an aspect, then Crown of Tempest will continue to do well, but it'll have some good competition from the other subclasses, as the other subclasses have builds that let them go infinite without needing to wait on ability timers, regardless of how fast those ability timers can end up being on Arc. Crown does help with the old super though. Hunters have 3 exotics tied to supers, 2 of them never get touched, and 1 of them has been the best for 5 years in a row. Blight Ranger dramatically increases reflected damage with their Arc Staff, and it also makes Orbs of Power, and Raiju's Harness makes it so guarding with your staff in your super requires no energy. Not that you can guard with your staff outside of your super. Here's the thing. Anything revolving around blocking stuff in PvE is pretty much handled by Titans. Arc Staff is not big enough, it does not cover a wide enough area, and it's not good enough to spend your full super blocking things, or even half of your super. It's too small, the damage reflected is terrible, it's always been terrible, even going back to D1 when we can block with swords. I would love for both of these exotics to be combined in some way and then make the reflected damage actually good in PvE. I want to be able to kill a champion with their own attacks. That's the only way you're getting me interested in these exotics. I want to be able to do something like hold all the projectiles thrown at me while I have my guard up, and then when I drop it, I fling all the projectiles like a blade barrage. That's what I want to see from these exotics. And then, if you're just going to deal damage with your super, you put on Raid and Flux, because Raid and Flux does everything you want an exotic revolving around a super to do. It makes it last longer, and it deals more damage. It has done this since day one. It is the best. There is no reason not to use it while on Arc Staff, period. I don't see any changes coming to Raid and Flux. I'd much rather see these other exotics get a buff, but I also don't see us getting any sort of reflect damage aspects or anything, so the buffs would just need to be on the exotics. Again, I fully expect Arc Staff to get the ability to Whirlwind Guard built in, and I fully expect Hunters to get a new super for Arc. This would be a wildly missed opportunity if Bungie did not make something new. It could use the staff, it could do something else, whatever, just I really think there's going to be something new. Before I go into Lucky Raspberry, Shinobu's, Liar's Handshake, I want to hypothesize what Hunters could get when it comes to aspects. I think Tempest Strike will become an aspect. I think it fits the theme very well. It does a cool shockwave thing. Bungie could make that do whatever it wants. Blind, Chain Lightning, Keyword, something or other. And it's from Middle Tree, which has some hints of what I believe Arc 3.0 type effects will be. Hit a target to electrify them, and then meleeing them disorients the target, and it gives you a bunch of energy. Like that right there feels like an Arc 3.0 effect already. So that's why I think Tempest will be an aspect in some form. Plus, Titan has an uppercut attack as an aspect. Tempest, that's an uppercut, sort of. That's not the strongest argument, I know, but still. The other 2 branches revolve completely around melee attacks and dodging. Top Tree has pretty good synergy with Combination Blow, Deadly Reach, and Combat Flow. Lethal Current is super only, but they could detach that from the super, I guess. Bottom Tree doesn't have as much synergy though. A lot of those could get broken up into fragments. But I think the other 2 aspects Hunters will get will revolve around dodge and melee. Probably one of each, maybe even combined with the 3rd aspect being something completely new. So, as a result, when it comes to the grenade exotics, Lucky Raspberry, Shinobu's, I'm skeptical that they will get a significant boost or a big boost at all, but I also don't think they get any worse. Just kind of depends on what the keywords of Arc end up being and if they synergize. If grenades are part of the equation in some way on aspects, maybe they do a Chain Lightning thing, whatever, then, you know, all right, these will continue to be some sort of low mid-tier option, but if grenades aren't as big of a deal, then these exotics just kind of exist and maybe could use a buff. I don't think Shinobu's needs a buff. Lucky Raspberry, maybe. I do think Arc 3.0 will involve grenades, though. I think it'd be weird to only have one ability be valuable and not also the other, given that Arc is supposed to be about fast-paced action and using your abilities, but whether or not they're important on Hunter specifically is a mystery, obviously. Liar's Handshake is notably paired with Combination Blow to stack a bunch of melee bonuses to deal a huge chunk of damage. If Combination Blow sticks around in some way, then Liar's Handshake will work as well as any other melee-based build can work. Worm Gods, Winter's Guile on the other classes. If it doesn't stick around, then it's probably going to be difficult to go infinite with this exotic like you kind of can right now, and it'll instead be a thing that you wind up, you let it go, and then you build it up again, which is maybe how it should have been from the get-go. I don't know. Do I think hunters get blink back? Tough call. I think it's possible it happens, but given that it hasn't been around for many years, that kind of makes me skeptical. But is it possible? It's possible. So, there's a little bit of a discussion on Arc Exotics, Arc 3.0, there you go. Most of the best Arc Exotics in the game completely revolve around your super, and that's it. Most of them are swap exotics. You just swap to them when you're gonna use your super, and then you swap off. They're all pretty good. It's not like they're bad, but I'm wondering how Arc 3.0 will end up shifting things from potentially a more super-centric build format where all we want to do is get our super as fast as possible and that's it, since that's where our power is, to a more ability or movement-based format. Really interested in what the future holds for Arc, especially in endgame, if it's going to be viable or if people are just going to continue to ignore it. Hit me in the comments. Let me know how you're feeling. Thanks for watching. See you next time.